Jason Cooper, everyone. So would you like to introduce yourself and tell the audience where you're coming from today?
Sure, some of these people know me already. My name is Jason. I'm the co-director of this film with my partner Jay. Up until about a month ago, we both lived in LA. And recently my wife and my family, we just moved to Michigan. So now I'm back in the Midwest here. So yeah, not so cool
Great.
in Ohio. But I'm originally from Toledo, so I do have some Ohio roots here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So I'll ask the first question. I think one of my favorite parts about this film is how the anticipation builds. And at the end, there's this incredible reveal of these pictures that I wasn't expecting it to be that profound. Did you always plan to make the film as this slow build, this reveal at the end?
Yeah, astrophotography is really boring.
Yeah.
And I think when we decided to make this film, I knew that I had been watching a lot of French films, old French films, and there's all this very slow, just letting whatever happens in front of you. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll embrace it. We're gonna be in the desert. Let's just kind of let it be boring. And he's such a dork, and in a very endearing way. And you're like, well, who is this guy? He's walking in the desert with sandals on. He's got a stick to pull things out of his car. He's just a nerd, and to then surprise the audience with, oh, he's super talented and his art is incredible. For me, that was what was endearing about him, and I did want there to be some sort of narrative journey, and I just sort of had to suck up the fact that it's gonna be boring for 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and then maybe people will still watch it to the end and get the payoff. So
yeah, it's worth the wait for sure. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
I think, that I would have wished I could have enjoyed that more, but that was the moment I was like, oh, we got to make sure that we get some sort of oh, he did it thing, right? Because we've been paying off. He's sitting in the desert for 10 hours. It has to be a payoff. So in the moment, I don't think I loved it as much. For me, actually, the biggest thing is we shot it and we didn't really know how it would come together. And then there was a panel earlier I talked about it, but Jay and I found that Kennedy speech. And I thought that was a cool setup, and I like the parallel between the moonshot, the original moonshot, and then him getting a moonshot. I thought that was kind of cool, and they both have this aspirational idea of getting people to think about space. And when Jay started layering in that footage, that to me was whoa. I was like, why would we do this? And then it was oh yeah, that makes so much sense, and it makes the film so much better, I think, to give it some context. And I don't know that it works out like that, but for me, that was the best part of making it.
Yeah.
Based on the title, I was expecting to be able to see the red moon on the long shot, and all I saw was the white. It wasn't until the close-ups that you developed. So should we have ever seen it actually red? I've seen some pretty red moons.
Yeah, I think so. Filming it was super hard. This was a hard thing to make. One, we did this with no budget. So Jay and I, we make other things that pay us, and this was definitely not one of them. And so we just sort of we siphon off a little bit of money from the other things, and we rented some cameras that we thought would do really well in low light. It's a dark film for some of it, which is we just kind of have to live with that, because we had to be somewhere that was dark and we couldn't have a bunch of lights when they're trying to get these images. So the photography of the moon itself was sort of secondary to us, to making sure we got something with them. And we knew we didn't want to ruin the payoff that he has either. So we had some stuff where the moon may have been a little bit more red, but we didn't want to play into that color space and then undo the sort of magic of when we reveal the pictures at the end. So
Yeah.
So it said that his photos been shared millions of times all over the internet. Has NASA or Elon Musk or anybody else going into space said anything about the
oh yeah. So it was in the year since we filmed this, I think he's gone from 200,000 Instagram followers, which is how I found him, or maybe somewhere like that. And then I think he has over 500,000 now. And his pictures, if you haven't followed him, you should follow his Instagram feed. It's cosmic_background. He shares amazing stuff, and he's so open with the community. Like he'll tell people how he makes it. He's truly a nerd about it, and just will talk about it for days. But one of his pictures of the moon was so good, NASA turned it into a banner that they put in front of the Artemis shuttle before they launched it as like the big promotional banner. So this
Wow.
huge thing, and they flew him out there. I think they scrubbed the launch, but like to have an amateur guy that was before we so a little background on him. When I talked to him, he was living in Sacramento, so not like he was living in the middle of nowhere getting pictures like this. That time, this was a special trip that he made. But his other images are also fantastic. When some of them we featured in the end, he's taking them from his backyard. It's not like he had to like go anywhere special for it. And then in the intermeeting time since we filmed this, he quit his job, he sold his house and moved to the middle of nowhere in Arizona and built a little observatory there where he sort of like upped his game, and now he sells prints. Like this is his job, his life, his passion. And so for me, that was also like really exciting. I love those kinds of stories when I don't know that we didn't discover him, but we could have caught him in this moment of change for his life, and we're able to be there for that. Was kind of fun.
What was his job before?
He was like just a computer IT guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He's got a little bit of like, he kind of knows what he's doing on a computer, but literally he taught himself everything just from throwing himself into an expensive hobby. So.
Yeah.
It's really cool because you're a creative artist, storyteller, telling a story about another creative artist, really kind of almost storyteller too. So just interacting with him, watching him do his process, making this film, how are you personally changed?
I think so. The conversation at the end was literally my first phone call with him. When I emailed him, I was like, hey, I like your work. I would love to, I'm interested in you. And, I wasn't ready to like go make a film with him yet. And that call, he says something, I was like, I recorded it just to like have it as a note. But it was so natural and free. I was like, I'm never going to get him to say this exactly the same way, and I don't want to do an interview. He said that his goal was to like, to take people with him into the world, into the galaxy. And like, that is as like a storyteller, that's what you want to do. And so I don't know that it changed me in any way, but it was just to sort of see that manifest and to turn into something so great for him, and to have him like kind of fulfill that mission is heartening, and sort of, drives you forward in a business where frankly it's very slow and there's a lot of no's. So it's nice to see someone do what they set out to do.
I think we have time for one or two more questions.
I was just going to ask, so did you just stumble upon him? Is that basically you were perusing Instagram and found him?
I think so. I'm pretty sure it all kind of jumbled together, but I saw one of his pictures, and it was a picture of the moon, and it was like just when probably similar to what you all had just watching it. You're like, I never really sat back and looked at the moon like that. Like, that is so cool. And then I looked him up, and I saw that he had the most upvoted picture on Reddit, like for 2020 or 2019, one of those years. And that's that's hard to do, to be like the best picture on a social media site over the course of a year. And so that was when I was like, all right, maybe I should try to get in touch with him and learn more about him.
Yeah.
Some of us here were actually alive when JFK made that speech, and I barely remember it. I think you probably remember it better than I did. Did you have to get special permission from the government or something to have that?
That's my dad, so maybe he's worried I'm going to get sued. Most of the NASA footage is public domain and available for use as long as you are not doing it in a commercial capacity. So, which I've been able to use before, and they make all of the archives available for everyone, and they're actually really cool to go through if you ever want to dive down a hole of cool old space footage. They have a lot of it.
You ruined my last comment by saying I was your father.
Oh.
I couldn't tell you that your parents must be very proud of you.
That's lovely to know. Thank you.
Out of everything you've done, have you ever seen somebody so passionate about what they do
I made another film called Kickstarted where I followed some people who were also creators chasing their dreams. And I don't know that there's like a chart, but they were like, I mean, literally one guy went to 2 brain surgeries to make an album. So I don't know, at a certain level, it's like, yeah, these people are very driven. And I think maybe I'm just attracted to those kinds of stories because I want to do that too. And it's cool to see people fulfill those desires, because what else are we here to do? So
Yeah, that's great. Let's hear it for Jason.
thanks for watching.
And both of the films we just watched are part of our Shared Planet shorts, and those are going to be streaming online for our streaming festival, October 9th to the 16th. So you can see them again along with a couple of other ones. And if anybody wants to talk to either of our filmmakers, they can meet you out in the lobby of Township Hall and continue the conversation. Thank you.